Here's the data that the crash bros just don't want you to know. Now, it's probably because they really don't know how to find this information or look up this information. And typically they just look at the numbers that come out from Austin Board of Realtors or wherever, and they go, see, this is an example of why the market's crashing. So let me explain something to you. Data can be manipulated. Oh my goodness. What I find really interesting about some of these crash channels, especially like Reventure, they always say, don't listen to real estate agents. They're just here to sell you something. Well, I actually have the data. I actually take the time to go through and look at the data, and the data kind of cuts against a lot of the things that he says. Now, I don't disagree that there's a huge, in fact, I don't even know what Reventure says anymore because I don't pay attention to him. What I do know is that when you're looking at the media and things, you're seeing prices have come down this much, prices have come down this much. And if you actually look at the data, that might not be the case. And this is one thing that I always try to explain to clients and anybody. One thing we really need to address is this Airbnb crash information that Reventure put out, Nick Gurley. Now, I put out a reel about this talking about it, but it's really important we actually talk about this because he's saying that from information that he pulled from RevPal, that markets are down 50% everywhere, and that we're going to see this flood of inventory hitting the market. I can speak to this as someone who just sold their Airbnb on the beach in Sal Padre, and I can speak to this that number one, nobody can duplicate his numbers. Even AirDNA came out and said, hold on a second, these numbers, this 50% down, I can't duplicate it. So it's interesting that his numbers showing this massive crash, followed by, hey, by the way, sign up for my app, which really annoys me that he really gets into his client or his base and says, don't trust realtors because realtors are always lying to you. They got to sell homes. Yet you turn around and sell a product to people and you scaremonger them into it. So it's interesting that AirDNA says that these numbers are like 3% most of the time, not this 30 to 50% reduction in overall markets. Now he is saying that we're going to see a ton of inventory hit the market from this. Right now, nationally, as we saw last week, that we are actually below 2022's numbers, and 2022 was really low of new active inventory, and that's nationally, not necessarily in the Austin area. For a lot of people that got into Airbnbs, a lot of them bought homes in the 3% to 3.5% interest rates. So if you did buy something with that in mind and you bought it at 3%, challenge is you're not going to put it on the market. You're going to try to do longer rentals, right? You're going to do 3 to 6 month rentals. That's what I had clients here in the Austin area doing. Instead of doing short-term rentals, they were doing 3-month, 6-month blocks, and they were doing very well. Now, I personally just sold my Airbnb, and I think this is where some people that bought Airbnbs are going to run into issues, is the fact that it's not as easy to do Airbnb as people think. We did see a flood of inventory, but does that mean that people are going to start selling like I did? I just didn't have the time to manage it, and I sold. So I imagine that we're going to see quite a few Airbnb rentals on the market, but are they already on the market is the question. Now in Austin, we have a lot of inventory on the market, and a lot of it's vacant. Over 60% of the homes in the market are vacant currently. So are those Airbnbs? I don't have the exact number, but I imagine a lot of those people did either bought rentals 2020, 21, 22, and just don't want to deal with it. The property taxes went up. I'd say realistically, if Reventure wanted to actually understand the housing market and real estate market, he would actually go, oh, taxes are going to be the major issue, because I've been saying that for a long time. But this massive crash coming from Airbnbs is highly unlikely. The reality is his numbers can't even be duplicated. Is he lying? I don't know. You write in the comments below, is he lying? Because RevPal is saying it's 3%, and I saw like Austin was around 10%, but he's saying Austin's like 54% on his chart. So those are two things to think about. The other thing in the Austin market coming up, we have F1 coming up. In October, we have ACL Fest and other festivals coming. So this is the time that a lot of those Airbnb owners make a lot of their money back with F1 and ACL. So we'll see if that happens. I personally don't think that we're going to see this wave of crashing inventory. Again, there are markets that need the inventory, not necessarily the Austin market. Here's the other thing is this time of year, July, we actually see a big reduction in sales because it's hot, people aren't buying homes. What do you think? Drop a comment below. Everything is relative. Each zip code is going to have different price increases and decreases. Every zip code is going to have different things happen. You actually have to look at the comps around you to understand what prices are happening. Here's an example. My zip code, 78737, if you look at the year-over-year data that just came out from Austin Board of Realtors, it would show you that potentially prices in my neighborhood have dropped 40%. Well, let me show you the data and show you why that's wrong, because I'll talk about the stat of why that data is wrong and how I found out that data is wrong in my own neighborhood. Here's something that's really interesting, and this is where they will never look up because they don't have access to it. So in 2022, so we're about 175 days into the year in 2023. If you go look at 2022, 19% of the home sales were over $1 million. Now think about it, we always report median. So if you have a lot of sales at the top and not as many sales at the bottom, then you're gonna skew that number up. So we saw median prices in June of last year or May of last year around 675, around that mark, and now they're around 550 in the Austin area. So for Austin, 19% of the sales last year were over $1 million, 16% this year. So that's a drop of, from 19 to 16%. Here's the thing that is even more interesting though. That 550 to 999 price point is where you're gonna see pretty big disparities, and then the price below that. So that price above 550, our median right now, is really important to understand. Last year, 44% between 550 and 999 sold. This year, only 37%. And I'm gonna get to why this is important. So we have a huge reduction in that 550 to 999 price point. Here's where things drastically change though. For this year, for the first half of the year, last year, we're comparing the same time, first 175 days, 36% last year sold under 550, 36%. This year, 46%. So here's why this is really important. For one, what we're seeing is that with interest rates increasing as quickly as they have, those buyers that would have probably moved up are not moving up. Think about it. If you're at a 3%, 2.5 interest rate that you bought on a home at 550, and now the next progression is to buy that $1 million home or that 775 home, you're not making that move this year because interest rates are at 6.9%. That's huge. Now, think about it. A lot of people said the market was going to crash over a lot of other reasons. They did not even really say that the market was going to crash because of the Fed getting involved in escalating interest rates as quickly as they did. That was like secondary to them just saying like, oh, that rental rates are dropping. Now, rental rates actually have only come down in Austin. If you actually look at rent.com, about 7%. It depends on what you're looking at. One bedrooms are actually up 5%. So that's an interesting stat. What they don't want you to understand is that when you have a lot more sales under 550, now if you think about it, entry price points in the Austin area are between like 300 and 550. If you see a huge increase in the amount of those sales, that will bring the prices down. So like in my neighborhood, I actually did the numbers and the comps. I haven't lost any equity in my home buying from June of last year to June of this year. None. In fact, I've gained equity because I put in a pool. But if I were just to go off that 40% drop that I read as the number and I reported as a 40% drop instead of actually looking at the physical data, I would be telling everybody in my neighborhood, yeah, you lost 40%. That's not even true. It's not even close. And they don't want you to know that. They don't want to dig into that. Number one, it takes time. Well, who's taking the time to do that? I am. I'm taking the time to actually dig in and look at those numbers. And what's also interesting is that when you have a reduction of the million plus sales, that also will bring down the overall median. So that's partly why we're seeing the median around 550 versus really increasing. So we have more lower dollar property selling. That doesn't negate the fact that we still have an affordability issue, but it does tell you that more buyers are taking advantage of that under 550 in this market. Now, they don't want you to buy a home. Now, I'm not telling you to buy a home. Don't buy a home if you can't buy a home. But what they want you to do is make realtors the bad guy. Like, we're the bad guy because we sell homes, so don't listen to us. In all reality, the buyers that we're having success this year are buyers that are buying under 550, right? Because there's more available. They can use FHA. They can put 3% down. They're not putting 20% down. And depending on what they end up doing, you can actually get buy downs. Think about that. If it's 6.9% right now, and the seller will give you $15,000 in closing costs, and you can actually buy that rate back down to like 4.9%, 5.9%. Those are huge, two different numbers. But that's what we're seeing with builders too. Builders are offering that huge incentive to buy down the rate under 5%. The problem is that a lot of these people that are telling you not to buy are probably hurting you in the future, because if you're not buying right now, which I'm not saying to buy, and you're going to wait until next year when interest rates drop because everybody's saying they will, then you're going to see a flood of buyers in the market. Now, I have been saying all year the last half of 2023 is going to be the better time to buy. Why? right now, and from the beginning of the year, we've been over 3% months of inventory on the market. We have a lot of inventory on the market right now. The challenge is that the last half of the year, things slow down. Starting right now, this is June 24th where I'm filming this. The last half of this year, everything really slows down. So we're going to see price drops, especially with interest rates still at 6.9% in that range. So you're going to see prices continue to drop right now. And if you're on the fence and you're going, well, the crash bros say not to buy, it's 5.9%, not knowing that you can get the seller to kick in contributions to get you a lower rate. Maybe you go to a builder and negotiate those things. You're gonna be sitting on the fence, and then next year you're gonna be like, oh shoot, I missed the boat again. Now, again, this is not me telling you to buy. And you know, I don't think necessarily all the crash bros out there are wrong. Look, there's a lot of indicators that the market's gonna crash or drop. And I've been saying this for months and months and months, and that's because we have a lot of inventory. There's indicators that the prices are going to drop the last half of the year. I've said that. I've also said it is possible that we see prices in the year positive because we ended last year at 525 after a 20% drop. Now, how far does prices drop and bounce back potentially this year? We don't know. But I am telling you that if you're going to buy, make sure you're buying and holding for a very long time. It's the time in the market, not timing the market, is going to make the difference. Listen to the crash bros, listen to what they say, look at the data they have, and then come back and listen to people like me who actually have the data that they can actually go in and look at the numbers, because that's going to be a huge difference. Again, listen to both sides. Look, you have the realtor here telling you, listen to both sides, right? Get the information you need to put yourself in the best position, but don't rely on one or the other. And so that's the problem I have with a lot of these channels. Like, don't listen to realtors. Realtors are the enemy. I'm not your enemy. I'm here trying to help you make good financial decisions. In fact, at the peak of the market right now, I just bought another investment property. That's an investment property that you're probably gonna end up renting because you're not taking these financial cues. So the problem I have with most of these big names, like Specialty Reventure, has never owned a home, never had any rental properties, never had anything in the housing market, and doesn't even understand how seasons work in the housing market. That is a big problem for you if you're listening to people like that. I think you need to get perspective, listen to a multitude of people, just don't listen to me. There's times I'm wrong. Look, I can be wrong. It's all right. Reventure and all these other places can be wrong at times, and that's fine, but you have to look at all the information for yourself. That's all I'm saying. So Jeremy Knight, the Knight Group, your favorite awesome realtor. We'll see you in the next video.